One of the things that becomes very clear when you learn Chassidus is that Torah changed everything from the way it would have been without the revelation at Sinai to after the revelation at Sinai. For example, is God knowable? Oh, of course not. No, he's unknowable. Well, he came down to Mount Sinai, made himself knowable. So when we say he's unknowable, we mean, I don't know what the word would be. Naturally, he would be unknowable?
Otherwise unknowable.
Otherwise.
Right.
Logically unknowable. But he wants to be known, so he makes himself known in the Torah. The same thing with logically, he shouldn't create a world. It's beneath his dignity. He's not a carpenter. But he did. Logically, he shouldn't create evil. But he did. Sins and Yetzirah and everything else. Logically, he cannot be present in Hashemayim Mishmei Hashemayim lo yichal kelucha v'af ki abayis hazeh. So God says, I will be present in this little hut that you build in the desert, covered with purple wool or whatever. Yeah, you'll be present in that tiny little space. You shouldn't, but he is. So we shouldn't get stuck like no thought can comprehend him, end of sentence. No, it's not the end of a sentence. It's a lead-in to the fact that he makes himself known because he wants to. So isn't this what Nesava means? There is a problem with words. If there is absolutely nothing besides him, not only why did he want anything, but what was there to want? There was nothing, and yet he wanted it. He wanted it. What did? So you have to use the word he desired. Same problem. He desired what? There was nothing to desire except himself. That's where we get caught in language. But we certainly cannot say God is so perfect he cannot need or want or change. You can't say that about him. Because the distinction between him and creation is that all of creation is governed by rules. If you're big, you can't be small. If you're holy, you can't be evil. If you're good, you can't be bad. But then to say, and so God is so perfect, he can't have a flaw. I'm not sure what perfect means if you're talking about God. And he can't have a flaw? Who sets these rules for him? Who's going to chastise him and say, you're God, you can't have flaws? It's almost like we want to attribute that to him because of what we think perfect is. But perfect is a trap. You're too perfect to bother.
Well, I think when people use the term perfect to describe Hashem, what they mean is complete. That he's not incomplete.
Right.
Because what's the problem with saying he's incomplete? It's the problem that you alluded to earlier, to say that there's anything outside of him. So to say he's incomplete means he's in search of something that he doesn't have. Where is that thing that he doesn't have? Somewhere outside of him, and he has to go get it. That would be a theological problem.
Mm-hmm. Because there is nothing besides him.
There is nothing besides him. So when you talk about a flaw or a lack in God, lacking what? What else is there? So it is a difficult term to use. I won't say that it's abjectly wrong to use it, but I'll say I understand why people would hear it and reject it immediately, because it immediately implies there's something else other than him, and that's a big problem. It's an insurmountable problem.
Oh.
To say there's anything other than God, I don't know a way to make that go away.
Right.
And I don't think we want to make it go away.
So it leaves us with a question.
I mean, Ein Oid Milvado, I think we're going to stick with that.
We're committed to it.
We're committed to it. Okay.
So we have a policy, but we don't have an answer. So why is there a world that is not him? In other words, it doesn't help to say he doesn't need it, he just wanted it. That makes it worse. There is nothing to want, just like there is nothing to need. And now you're just making it sound frivolous. Not only does he want stuff, he doesn't even need it. In other words, we're not getting away from the question. What are we doing?
Okay, that's fine.
Well, how does the world exist?
It's fine to say we're not getting away from the question, but it might give us an opportunity to restate the question in a way that maybe people will be able to hear the answer a little bit more clearly.
That's the challenge.
Right. So instead of saying, well, did God create the world because he was in need of something? Did he create the world because he wanted something? Why don't we just put that aside and ask it in a completely different way, which is, why is there a world?
Right.
I think that's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It's not only a fair question, it's the best question in the world. Why is
By the way, you know what's the worst question? You said, why is there a world is the best question. You know what the worst question is? Why is there God? Why is there God? Man-made God concepts they exist to explain why the world exists. Meaning it is axiomatic that the world exists, and I better come up with a pretty good God concept to account for it. So that's the answer to why is there God. Why is there God? To explain why the world exists. That's the worst question.
And the worst answer.
The worst answer to the question that the world exists because God exists.
Or God exists in order to explain the world.
God exists in order to explain the world. Yeah, right. So that's not our question. Our question is not why does God exist. I mean, God is existence.
Right.
Is the definition of existence. In fact, if it's not God, it doesn't exist. The question is,
why?
Does the world exist? And I could add to that also, does it even exist? But that's another question.
That's getting weird.
Let's take it for granted the world exists.
Okay.
Why?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Not how, which is what scientists are trying to figure out.
I'm not asking the mechanism, I'm asking the purpose.
Right. Because the mechanism will never explain why. And the existence of the world is a why.
But remember, the context here is I'm asking, why does a world exist if it is axiomatic that there's nothing that God is lacking because there's nothing that's outside of him? And even when the world exists, it is not outside of him. So then, what's being gained here? It's him from the beginning, it's him at the end. What's happening? And why? Really more why.
Why?
Why, yeah.
So here's one possibility. God is an essential being, right? He's not a composite. He doesn't have parts. He's indivisible. He's like an essential oil. It's indivisible. That should be concealed. It's like he's introverted. Nobody should know about that. It should not be beguli. It should not be revealed. It would seem.
It shouldn't be in what sense? That it would be improper, or it just doesn't make sense logically?
It doesn't make sense that something so essential would be on display. This is what God changed. He said, no, I, the essence of me, is going to be revealed. That's why Chassidus explains why heaven can't reveal God, earth can, that whole thing. That the essence of God, not his holiness, not his characteristics, not even his love, but he himself cannot be revealed to the angel, only to the human being. Whatever the explanation is, but the point is that that's what he's trying to do. He's making his essence known. Because to limit him to unknown, there's your greatest imperfection, which can't be. So there's another paradox. He really should be introverted, so essential that there is nothing to see, there's nothing to know, and yet God reveals himself so that he is both essential and revealed, which doesn't make sense by laws of nature.
And this explains why there's a world?
The world is simply the essence of God revealing itself. And so nothing changed. I think Rabbi once used an example. He says, he didn't use these words, but he says, you have a pitcher who can throw the ball 100 miles an hour.
Rabbi definitely didn't use the word pitcher.
Right. But he said, a guy throws a ball. Yeah?
Okay.
He said, he throws the ball to the east, and then he turns around and he throws the ball to the west. What a change! An additional talent he just gained. Until now, he could only throw it to the east. Now he can throw it to the west as well. That's not a change. God can be concealed. God can also be revealed. Oh my God, what a talented guy. He is he. Now this he can be revealed or it can be concealed. So it was concealed. Then it became revealed. It hasn't changed. What has changed is the perception of the created being. No being could conceive of him when he was concealed. Now, the creation can.
So there's a change in creation.
To the creation, there's a change. Yeah.
A subjective change, or it's actual, it's real? Or is it only there from our perception?
Yeah, perception is everything, isn't it? Well, I mean, what happened at Mount Sinai? There was a rule that El Yenim Lo Yer de Lamata, that what is high cannot come down low, and what is low cannot go up high. That changed because God came down to Mount Sinai, and Moshe went up to heaven.